Hello. Years ago, when the BBC took its remit as a public service utility seriously, if they were about to broadcast a programme that featured violence or spooky happenings, there'd be an introductory announcement along the following lines, something like, "Viewers are advised that this programme is not suitable for children or those of a nervous disposition." And that's what I'm saying here about what's coming next. So if you want a bit of light entertainment and don't like talk about people being utterly beastly to each other, then you better find another video to watch, because this isn't going to be very nice. It's one video I really am not going to enjoy making. And we'll start with a short lecture on how we breathe. There's a common misconception that we take in air by expanding our lungs. Actually, that's not the case. The lungs are largely passive. You breathe in with your diaphragm, which is a muscle underneath the lungs. The diaphragm draws down, creating a vacuum in the chest. Nature abhors a vacuum. The lungs expand to fill the space, and then air rushes in to fill the expanded lungs. After that, the diaphragm pops back, pushing out the used air. So what's so disturbing about that? Well, nothing. But crucifixion is. The way crucifixion kills you is as follows. When you hang someone up by their arms, you're stretching their diaphragm to the point where it's unable to function. As a consequence, the victim starts to suffocate. The only way to seek relief and to get some air into the lungs would be to take the weight off the arms by standing up. If the feet are nailed to the upstand of the cross, then this would be the equivalent of standing up on a nail, which is a position that cannot be sustained for very long. A breath or two perhaps, depending on the upper body strength of the victim, and then he collapses and the cycle of suffocation starts all over again. I say he because when women were crucified, this was usually face to the cross with their feet bound, so that would finish them off relatively quickly. But in the position which is generally shown in the religious paintings about Jesus, the death was slow and without a second of peace or respite during the whole process. There are many cruel deaths which have been devised by human beings who like to think they're doing God's work. But this particular process is not only painful and slow, it also contains a cruel joke, because the victim could die quickly, as the women would have done. However, his own bodily reactions keep him alive. That is, the method of execution uses the body's own most noble instincts to create a particular sort of extended hell. I keep thinking of that when stuff like that Trump tweet blows up. There were 3 videos, one of questionable provenance, but the other 2 of undoubted veracity. Whatever the source, no one denies that they showed a particularly violent and barbaric way of behaving, which is at present characteristic of many Muslim societies, and increasingly seems to be consuming more of them. And yet, the storm of protest is not against the throwing of gay men off roofs or against the desecration and destruction of churches, but it is against the latest posters of the videos. I have no brief for Britain First. They would probably be just as hard on me as a Jew as they are on Muslims. But they didn't make the 2 verified records. They got them from the Muslim world, and nobody is arguing either about their accuracy or about the fact that this sort of thing is going on throughout the Muslim world, even as I'm recording this. So why was I talking about crucifixion? I suppose some of you might have got the drift by now, but if you haven't, it's because the Western world seems to be in the process of crucifying itself. We are using the very processes that have made us what we are to destroy ourselves. As a society, we don't like victimizing minorities. We don't like punishing the innocent for the sins of the guilty. We don't like false accusations. We don't like injustice. And it's our commitment to these very things that render us unable to deal with a threat that is coming not only from political Islam, but also from other related political movements within our own societies. The British Prime Minister Theresa May rejected Trump's tweets with the announcement that British people overwhelmingly reject the prejudiced rhetoric of the far right, which is the antithesis of the values that this country represents: decency, tolerance and respect. And she's right. The problem is that our ideas of decency, tolerance and respect very often cut just one way, and the tolerance bit is being exercised to the extent that we allow people to do unto us what we would be horrified at doing unto them. I'm not saying we should ditch our principles. We can stick to them and still overcome this. But we can only do that when we understand what we're dealing with. Unlike the victims of Roman execution, we could step away from those nails any time, because the nails in this case are only our own fears about being called bad people. When we look at that fear rationally, it has lost its power.